A millionaire finds a little beggar girl asleep in the bathroom of his luxury hotel. What he does next leaves all the staff in shock. Alexander Morrison stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, his steel-grey eyes fixed on the skyline of Manhattan. The setting sun painted the glass facades of surrounding skyscrapers in hues of amber and gold, a sight that usually filled him with pride. Today, however, his mind was elsewhere. The quarterly reports lay open on his desk, showing another record-breaking performance for his luxury hotel chain, Morrison International. "Mr. Morrison," his assistant's voice crackled through the intercom, "the board meeting is scheduled in 10 minutes. He didn't respond immediately, his attention caught by his own reflection in the window. At 45, he cut an imposing figure, tall, distinguished, with perfectly tailored suits and not a single silver hair out of place. The newspapers often called him the Ice King of Hospitality, a nickname he secretly enjoyed. It meant he was doing something right. The boardroom was already full when he entered. 12 faces turned to watch him take his place at the head of the table. These meetings always followed the same script: numbers, projections, strategies. Clean, predictable, mathematical, just the way he liked it. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never known failure, "our Q4 results exceed all expectations. Revenue is up 28% year over year, and our new property in Dubai is already operating at 95% capacity." The presentation continued smoothly until Janet Chen, his CFO, raised an unexpected point. "There's something else we need to discuss, Alex. The employee satisfaction surveys, they're concerning." Alexander felt a flicker of irritation. "Employee satisfaction doesn't pay the bills, Janet. Happy workers don't automatically translate to profitable hotels." "But turnover rates are increasing," she persisted, sliding a document across the table. "We're spending more on training new staff than we would on retention programs." He dismissed her concerns with a wave of his hand. "Numbers can be managed. People are replaceable. Next item on the agenda." The meeting concluded with his typical efficiency, but Janet's words lingered uncomfortably in his mind. Later that evening, as he prepared to leave, his phone buzzed with a message from the manager of his flagship hotel in Manhattan. "Routine inspection required for insurance renewal. Your presence requested tomorrow morning." Alexander sighed. These inspections were usually delegated to lower-level executives, but this property was special. His first successful venture, the foundation of his empire. Perhaps a personal visit wouldn't hurt. That night, in his perfectly ordered apartment, overlooking Central Park, he poured himself a glass of 30-year-old scotch and walked to his home office. A single framed photograph sat on his desk, partially hidden behind a stack of reports. He rarely looked at it anymore, but tonight, something compelled him to pick it up. The picture showed 2 children, himself at 15 and his sister Sarah, then 12. They were smiling, their arms around each other, standing in front of their childhood home. It was taken just 3 years before she disappeared, before their family fractured beyond repair. He put the photo face down and finished his drink. Sentiment was a luxury he couldn't afford, not when he had an empire to run. Tomorrow would be another day of meetings, decisions, and profits. The past belonged in the past, safely locked away with all those other inconvenient emotions he'd learned to suppress. As he prepared for bed, he reviewed his schedule for the following day. The hotel inspection was set for 7 a.m. He'd always believed in starting early. Little did he know that this routine visit would shatter the carefully constructed walls he'd built around himself, forcing him to confront the very things he'd spent a lifetime trying to forget. The Morrison Grand Hotel stood like a gleaming sentinel in the heart of Manhattan, its Art Deco facade a testament to old-world luxury reimagined for the modern era. Alexander arrived precisely at 6:45 a.m., 15 minutes ahead of schedule. The early morning staff snapped to attention as he crossed the marble lobby, their faces a mixture of surprise and trepidation. Marcus Reynolds, the hotel manager, practically sprinted across the floor to greet him. "Mr. Morrison, we weren't expecting you so early. I can assure you everything is in perfect order for the inspection." Alexander nodded curtly, already scanning the lobby with his critical eye. Everything appeared immaculate: the fresh flowers at the concierge desk, the perfectly aligned furniture, the spotless floors. But something felt off. The morning shift seemed tenser than usual, their movements slightly too rigid, their smiles a touch too forced. "I'll start with the ground floor," he announced. "Alone." Reynolds opened his mouth to protest but thought better of it. Alexander began his methodical inspection, marking items on his tablet as he went. The restaurant's breakfast service was running smoothly, the kitchen spotless. The business center's computers were all functioning properly. The gym equipment gleamed under the morning light. He was about to move on to the upper floors when nature called. The nearest restroom was in the lobby's quieter west wing, away from the main entrance. As he pushed open the heavy door, the silence struck him first. Then a small sound, barely audible, caught his attention. In the corner of the elegant bathroom, partially hidden behind an ornamental plant, was a child. A little girl, no more than 7 or 8, curled up on the marble floor. Her clothes were worn but clean, her small frame almost completely concealed by a too large sweater. She was sleeping, her breathing soft and regular, one hand clutched tightly around what appeared to be a photograph. Alexander's first instinct was to reach for his phone and call security. This was exactly the kind of situation his protocols were designed to prevent. The hotel's reputation could be severely damaged if anyone discovered a homeless child in their bathroom. His finger hovered over the speed dial, but something made him pause. Perhaps it was the way she slept, so vulnerable yet somehow peaceful. Or maybe it was the photograph in her hand, creased and worn at the edges, held with such desperate determination even in sleep. As he stood there, frozen in indecision, the girl stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, and for a moment they stared at each other. Her eyes were a startling shade of green, the same color as Sarah's. The recognition hit him like a physical blow. I'm sorry," the girl whispered, scrambling to her feet. "Please don't call security. My mama, she works here. She doesn't know I'm here. Please don't get her in trouble." The words tumbled out in a rush, her voice trembling but determined. Alexander found himself kneeling down, maintaining eye level with the child. It was an instinctive gesture, one that surprised him as much as it seemed to surprise her. "What's your name?" he heard himself asking, his voice softer than he'd used in years. "Emma," she replied, clutching the photograph tighter. "And you're—" "Mother, she works here." Emma nodded, her eyes darting toward the door. "At the front desk, please, she's trying so hard. We lost our apartment and she hasn't found a new place yet and—" Alexander's mind raced. A front desk employee. Someone who worked in his hotel was homeless. The idea seemed impossible. He prided himself on paying competitive wages, unless— The photograph in Emma's hand caught his attention again. "May I?" he asked, gesturing toward it. After a moment's hesitation, she handed it to him. The image showed a woman with the same green eyes as Emma, smiling at the camera. When he turned it over, there was a name scrawled on the back: Rebecca Sullivan. The name hit him like a thunderbolt. Rebecca Sullivan, the new receptionist who had started 3 months ago. Her application had been impressive, a degree in hospitality management, excellent references. But now, looking at her daughter huddled in his hotel's bathroom, Alexander realized how little he really knew about the people who worked for him. Victoria Manning, the hotel's administrative manager, stood at her office window, watching the usual morning bustle below with narrowed eyes. Something was off. Marcus Reynolds, normally so composed, had been practically running through the lobby earlier, and now the Wellington Suite, their most expensive room, had been suddenly prepared and occupied, yet there was no record of a check-in. She pulled up the security footage on her computer, her manicured nails clicking against the keyboard. The cameras showed Alexander Morrison himself, leading a child through the service corridors. Victoria leaned closer to her screen, her lipsticked mouth turning down at the corners. In 15 years of working for Morrison International, she had never seen the CEO break protocol. Not once. "Charlotte," she called to her assistant, "get me Rebecca Sullivan's employee file, immediately." While she waited, Victoria mentally reviewed her position. She had worked her way up through the ranks, carefully cultivating relationships and eliminating competition. Now, as administrative manager, she controlled much of the hotel's day-to-day operations, but she wanted more. She deserved more. Charlotte returned with the file, and Victoria began to read. Her eyes lit up as she discovered the connection between Rebecca and the mysterious child. This could be exactly the opportunity she'd been waiting for. Meanwhile, in the Wellington suite, Alexander found himself doing something he hadn't done in years: listening. Emma, warmed by food and feeling safer, had begun to talk. She told him about their old apartment, about her mother's endless job searches, about the nights she pretended to be asleep so her mom wouldn't know she could hear her crying. "She's really good at her job," Emma said proudly, "at our old hotel. In Boston, she was the manager. Everyone loved her. But then the new owners came and lots of people lost their jobs." Alexander felt a chill. The Boston acquisition. He remembered it clearly. His company had bought the struggling hotel chain 2 years ago. He had personally overseen the streamlining process, cutting staff to improve profit margins. He had never considered the human cost of those decisions. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Marcus Reynolds. "Sir, Victoria Manning is asking questions about the Wellington suite situation. She's reviewing security footage." Before he could respond, another message arrived, this one from Claire. More information on Rebecca Sullivan. The Boston hotel where she worked was purchased by Morrison International in 2021. She was part of the mass layoff during restructuring, applied to 15 positions before securing current role at lower pay grade. Alexander closed his eyes, the weight of these revelations settling heavily on his shoulders. He had created this situation, his policies, his decisions, his ruthless pursuit of profit. They had helped create the circumstances that led to Emma sleeping in his hotel's bathroom. A knock at the door startled both him and Emma. When he opened it, he found Janet Chen, his CFO, standing there with a concerned expression. "Alex, we need to talk," she said quietly. "Victoria Manning has filed a formal complaint about a breach of security protocols. She's calling for an emergency board meeting." "Let her," Alexander replied, his voice steady. "In fact, schedule it for this afternoon. I think it's time we reviewed quite a few of our company policies." Janet studied, his face carefully. "This isn't like you, Alex. What's going on?" He glanced back at Emma, who had returned to her vigil by the window, her mother's photograph clutched close. "Maybe it's time for things to be not like me," he answered. As Janet left, Alexander received one final message, this one from Victoria Manning herself. "Mr. Morrison, I feel obligated to inform you that allowing unauthorized persons to use hotel facilities is a direct violation of company policy. As administrative manager, I cannot overlook this breach. I trust you understand the severity of this situation." The message was polite, professional, and carried a clear threat. In the past, Alexander would have appreciated such ruthless efficiency. Now it made him question everything he had built his empire upon. Rebecca Sullivan's hands trembled as she arranged the fresh flowers at the reception desk, her mind constantly wandering to Emma. 5 days of hiding her daughter's situation had felt like an eternity. Each shift was a dance of anxiety, trying to maintain her professional composure while carrying the weight of their circumstances. She glanced at her watch. Still 4 hours until her break when she could check on Emma at Mrs. Rodriguez's apartment. The guilt of leaving her daughter with their elderly neighbor gnawed at her, but she had no choice. In 2 more weeks, she'd have enough saved for a security deposit on a new apartment. They just had to hold on until then. "Ms. Sullivan?" The voice made her freeze. Victoria Manning stood before her, immaculate in a designer suit, her expression unreadable. "Come with me, please." Rebecca followed the administrative manager to her office, her heart pounding. Had someone discovered Emma? Had she made a mistake in her reports? The possibilities whirled through her mind, each worse than the last. Victoria's office was a testament to precision, every item perfectly placed, every surface spotless. She gestured for Rebecca to sit while remaining standing herself, a power play Rebecca recognized from her own days in management. "How long have you been hiding your daughter in our hotel, Miss Sullivan?" The words hit Rebecca like a physical blow. She gripped the arms of her chair, fighting to maintain composure. "I don't understand what you're talking about." Victoria's perfectly. Painted lips curved into a cold smile. Please, let's not waste time with denials. We have security footage. Your daughter is currently in the Wellington suite with Mr. Morrison himself. Would you care to explain how that happened? Rebecca's world tilted on its axis. Emma was with Alexander Morrison, the notorious Ice King of hospitality. She had seen him only once during her job interview, and his reputation for cold efficiency was legendary throughout the industry. I can explain, she began, but Victoria cut her off. No need. The situation is quite clear. You've violated multiple company policies. Using hotel facilities for personal purposes, unauthorized access, endangering a minor. The list goes on. I'm afraid we'll have to terminate your employment immediately. Please, Rebecca's voice cracked. My daughter, we have nowhere else to go. I just need 2 more weeks. I'll find another solution, I promise. Company policy is quite clear, Victoria replied, reaching for a folder on her desk. I've already prepared your termination papers, though given the severity of your violations, we could pursue more serious consequences. The threat hung in the air between them. Rebecca felt tears threatening to fall, but forced them back. She had lost everything once before, when Morrison International's acquisition had cost her her management position in Boston. She couldn't lose everything again. Just then, the office door opened. Alexander Morrison stood in the doorway, his imposing figure filling the frame. Victoria's smile faltered slightly. Mr. Morrison, I was just handling a serious breach of company policy. Were you? His voice was quiet but carried an edge that made both women look up sharply. Tell me, Ms. Manning, have you explained to the board how you've been manipulating vendor contracts for personal gain? Victoria's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. No? Alexander stepped into the office, closing the door behind him. The systematic overcharging of maintenance services, the kickbacks from certain suppliers, the ghost employees on payroll. Should I continue? Rebecca watched the exchange in stunned silence as Victoria's composed facade crumbled. Those are baseless accusations. Are they? Alexander placed a USB drive on Victoria's pristine desk. Everything is here. Every transaction, every altered document, every penny that found its way into your offshore accounts. Did you really think we wouldn't notice? Victoria's hands were shaking now, her carefully maintained control slipping away. You can't prove anything. Actually, I can. Janet Chen has been investigating financial irregularities for months. We just needed to understand the full scope of the operation. Your eagerness to eliminate Ms. Sullivan provided the final piece of the puzzle. He turned to Rebecca, his expression softening slightly. Ms. Sullivan, please return to your post. We'll discuss your situation later. As for you, Ms. Manning, the board would like to speak with you immediately. After Victoria's departure, with security, Alexander found himself alone with Rebecca in the now silent office. The tension in the room had shifted, but hadn't dissipated. Rebecca stood straight, her chin high, displaying the dignity of someone who had faced adversity before and survived. Your daughter, Alexander began. She's safe. She's in the Wellington suite with my personal assistant, Claire. Rebecca's professional mask cracked slightly. Mr. Morrison, I know what I did was wrong. Using the hotel facilities, hiding Emma, I accept full responsibility. But please understand I had no choice. After losing our apartment, after losing your management position in Boston, Alexander interrupted quietly. Because of my company's acquisition. Recognition flickered in Rebecca's eyes. You know about that? I know more than I did this morning. He moved to the window, looking out at the city skyline. Tell me about Boston. For a moment, Rebecca was silent. Then, like a dam breaking, the words poured out. She told him about managing the boutique hotel for 5 years, about the family atmosphere she'd created among the staff, about the regular guests who came back year after year because of the personal touch they provided. When Morrison International bought us, everything changed overnight. It wasn't just about losing my job, it was about losing our community. The new management didn't care about the relationships we'd built. It was all about numbers, efficiency, profit margins. Alexander felt each word like a personal indictment. These were his policies, his vision of how a hotel chain should operate. He had never considered the human cost of his streamlining processes. After the layoff, Rebecca continued, I applied everywhere. But the industry had changed. Everyone wanted younger managers, people who saw hotels as profit centers rather than homes away from home. The position here, it was a step down, but I was grateful for it. The salary seemed adequate until our rent doubled overnight. Then the eviction notice came. She stopped, composing herself. I'm not asking for sympathy, Mr. Morrison. I'll pack my things and... No, he said firmly, turning to face her. You're not going anywhere, except perhaps back to a management position. Rebecca stared at him, confusion evident on her face. I don't understand. Neither did I until this morning. He sat down, gesturing for her to do the same. Meeting Emma, learning your story, it's made me realize how disconnected I've become from the real impact of my business decisions. The policies I've implemented, they're efficient, yes, but at what cost? He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew the photograph Emma had been carrying. She's been keeping this close, you know. Even while eating breakfast in the Wellington suite, she wouldn't let it out of her sight. She's incredibly proud of you. Rebecca took the photograph with trembling hands. She's all I have, everything I do, every sacrifice, it's for her. I had a sister, Alexander said suddenly, surprising himself with the admission. Sarah. She tried to tell me once about the importance of compassion, of seeing people as more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. I didn't listen. She left, and I never saw her again. I buried myself in work, in creating systems and protocols, thinking that if I could control everything, I could prevent any more unexpected losses. He stood up, his decision crystallizing. I'm offering you the position of general manager at this hotel, Miss Sullivan, not because I pity you, but because you understand something I forgot, that a hotel is more than just a business. It's a community, a sanctuary, sometimes even a home. Rebecca's eyes widened. But the board, your shareholders, let me worry about them. There are going to be changes at Morrison International, starting right here. Victoria's corruption showed me that our current system is broken. We need leaders who understand both the business and the human side of hospitality. People like you. For the first time that day, a genuine smile crossed Rebecca's face. Emma will be thrilled. She keeps telling me that someday I'll be a manager again. Smart girl, Alexander replied, allowing himself a small smile in return. She gets that from her mother, I suspect. Now shall we go tell her the news? I believe she's still working on the breakfast buffet in the Wellington suite. The news of Victoria Manning's disgrace spread through the Morrison Grand Hotel like wildfire. By mid-afternoon, every employee, from the maintenance staff to the executive, chefs, was buzzing with speculation. The Ice King of Hospitality had personally exposed corruption in his ranks, and even more surprisingly, had promoted a front desk receptionist to general manager. In the hotel's elegant main restaurant, Janet Chen sat across from Alexander, watching him stir his untouched coffee. The lunch crowd had thinned, leaving them relatively private in their corner booth. The board is in an uproar, she said, sliding a tablet across the table. The shareholders are nervous about Victoria's arrest, and these headlines aren't helping. Alexander glanced at the screen. Morrison International rocked by corruption. Scandal, screamed one headline. Ice King melting. Morrison CEO shows unexpected soft side, declared another. Let them talk, he replied, his voice steady. Victoria's schemes could have cost us millions if left unchecked. As for Rebecca Sullivan's promotion, I stand by my decision. Janet leaned forward. Alex, I've known you for 15 years. You've never made a decision based on emotion before. What's really going on? Before he could answer, his phone buzzed, with a message from Claire. Emma's school records found. She's gifted, Alex, top of her class in Boston, but she hasn't been enrolled since the move to New York. Rebecca couldn't afford the registration fees for the private schools in their district. Alexander felt something twist in his chest, another consequence of his company's actions he'd never considered. He looked up at Janet, seeing his trusted CFO in a new light. "Tell me, Janet, how many of our employees have children?" She blinked at the unexpected question. I don't know. That data isn't something we typically track." "Exactly. We know everything about our profit margins, our occupancy rates, our cost per room, but nothing about the people who make it all possible." He straightened in his seat, decision made. "I want a complete audit of our employee benefits package, healthcare, education assistance, child care options, everything." "That kind of program would be expensive," Janet warned, but he could see the interest kindling in her eyes. "So is constant turnover. So is losing talented managers like Rebecca Sullivan, because we're too focused on short-term profits to see the bigger picture." A commotion near the restaurant entrance drew their attention. Marcus Reynolds was attempting to block someone's path, someone in an expensive suit who was becoming increasingly agitated. "Sir," Marcus was saying, "Mr. Morrison is in a private meeting." "Get out of my way," the man demanded. "I'm Richard Manning, Victoria's husband, and I demand to speak with Morrison." Alexander stood, nodding to Marcus to let Richard through. The man stormed over to their table, his face flushed with anger. "You set her up," Richard accused, pointing a finger at Alexander. "You orchestrated this whole thing to discredit her." "Your wife's actions discredited herself," Alexander replied calmly. "The evidence is quite clear." "Evidence?" Richard laughed bitterly. "You want to talk about evidence? How about evidence of your own hypocrisy? Breaking protocols for a homeless employee? Promoting an unqualified receptionist? The board will hear about all of it." Janet started to rise, but Alexander held up a hand to stop her. "Mr. Manning, your wife systematically defrauded this company while attempting to destroy an innocent woman's life. If you wish to discuss this further, I suggest you do so with our legal team." "This isn't over, Morrison," Richard snarled, as security arrived to escort him out. "Victoria knows things about this company, about you, things the press would love to hear." After he was gone, Janet turned to Alexander. "He's right about one thing. This isn't over. Victoria had allies on the board. They won't take this lying down." "No," Alexander agreed, watching Richard's retreating figure. "But neither will I. It's time for Morrison International to remember what hospitality really means." He paused, a slight smile touching his lips. "And I think I know exactly where to start." The Wellington suite had transformed over the course of the day. What began as a sanctuary for a tired child had become an impromptu command center. Laptops and tablets covered the dining table, while folders of employee records were spread across the luxurious sofas. Emma, now refreshed and more animated, sat cross-legged in a plush armchair, drawing in a sketchbook Claire had brought her. Rebecca stood at the window, still processing the whirlwind of changes that had upended her life in the past few hours. She was now general manager of the Morrison Grand, the same position she'd held in Boston, but at a far more prestigious property. The irony wasn't lost on her. "Mom," Emma called out, "look what I drew." Rebecca crossed to her daughter, examining the colorful sketch. It showed the hotel, but reimagined through a child's eyes. A playground occupied one corner of the property, while a reading room filled with books took up another. In the center, stick figures of various sizes represented hotel staff and their families. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Rebecca said, kissing the top of Emma's head. "Is this how you imagine the hotel could be?" "Mr. Morrison asked me to draw my dream hotel," Emma explained proudly. "He said sometimes the best ideas come from new perspectives." As if summoned by his name, Alexander entered the suite, followed by Janet Chen and a woman Rebecca didn't recognize. "Ms. Sullivan," Alexander began, then caught himself. "Rebecca, I'd like you to meet Sarah Martinez, our head of human resources. We've been discussing some changes to company policy." Sarah stepped forward, her warm smile a sharp contrast to the corporate environment. "Mr. Morrison has proposed a revolutionary, new employee benefits program. We'd like your input, given your unique perspective on both management and staff needs." They gathered around the dining table, clearing space among the scattered documents. Janet pulled up a presentation on her tablet. "We're calling it the Family First Initiative," she explained. comprehensive healthcare coverage, education assistance for employees' children, on-site childcare facilities at our larger properties, and an emergency housing assistance program. Rebecca's breath caught. That's ambitious. It's necessary, Alexander stated firmly. We've been running our hotels like machines, forgetting that they're actually communities. That stops now. Emma wandered over, curious about the activity. Her drawing caught Sarah's eye. What's this? She asked, examining the sketch. Emma's vision for a more family-friendly hotel, Alexander explained. And I think she's onto something. Our properties have plenty of amenities for guests, but what about spaces for our employees and their families? Janet was already taking notes. We could convert some of the underutilized conference rooms into multi-purpose spaces, learning centers, recreation areas. The old Richardson suite on the 3rd floor, Rebecca added, growing excited. It's been empty since the renovation. It could be perfect for a childcare center. As they discussed possibilities, Rebecca noticed Alexander watching Emma, who had returned to her drawing. There was something in his expression, a mixture of determination and regret, that made her wonder about the story behind his transformation. Mr. Morrison, she said quietly, while the others were absorbed in planning, why are you doing all this? He was silent for a moment, his gaze distant. Because someone once told me that success without compassion is meaningless. I didn't listen then, but I'm listening now. Before Rebecca could respond, Claire burst into the suite, her usual composure shaken. Alex, we have a problem. Victoria Manning just gave an interview to the Business Journal. She's claiming you're having an affair with Rebecca, that the promotion was a cover-up, and that you've been embezzling funds for years to support various indiscretions. The room fell silent. Rebecca felt her newfound security starting to crumble, but Alexander's expression didn't change. Good, he said simply. Good? Janet echoed incredulously. Alex, this could destroy everything we're trying to build. No, he replied, a hint of his old steel returning to his voice. This is exactly what we need. A chance to show the world what Morrison International really stands for, and more importantly, what it stands against. The Morrison Grand's lobby had become a battlefield. News vans crowded the street outside, while photographers camped near the entrance, hoping to catch a glimpse of the players in what the media had dubbed the Morrison scandal. Inside, guests whispered and pointed their phones, more interested in drama than discretion. Alexander stood in his office, watching the circus below. The Business Journal's article had opened the floodgates. Now every news outlet wanted their piece of the story: hotel mogul's secret romance, corporate corruption at Morrison International, the Ice King's meltdown. Claire entered without knocking, her tablet displaying even more headlines. The stock has dropped 12% since the market opened. The board is demanding an emergency meeting, and 3 major investors have already pulled out. What about the employee response? Alexander asked, his voice calm despite the chaos. That's different, Claire replied, swiping to another screen. After the announcement of the Family First initiative, social media has been flooded with stories from our employees. They're defending you, Alex, sharing their own experiences with Victoria's behavior, supporting Rebecca's promotion. A knock at the door interrupted them. Janet entered, followed by Thomas Bradford, the company's head of legal. It's worse than we thought, Thomas announced, dropping a thick folder on Alexander's desk. Victoria Manning didn't just go to the press. She's filed a wrongful termination lawsuit, claiming she was fired for exposing improper relationships within the company hierarchy. She's trying to paint herself as a whistleblower, Janet added. And it's working. The business media is portraying her as a crusading female executive brought down by the old boys club. Alexander turned from the window, his expression thoughtful. What do they want me to do? Issue a denial? Hold a press? Conference, hide behind corporate lawyers. That would be the standard procedure, Thomas confirmed. We can control the narrative, minimize the damage. No, Alexander interrupted. No more controlling narratives. No more damage control. It's time for something different. He pressed the intercom button on his desk. Claire, contact every major news outlet. Tell them I'm holding a press conference. Not in some sterile hotel ballroom, but in the lobby, where everyone can see. Alex, think about this, Janet warned. Once you go public, there's no taking it back. Good, he replied, because I'm done hiding behind protocols and procedures. He turned to Claire. And find Rebecca. She should be there too. As his team scrambled to arrange the press conference, Alexander sat at his desk and began to write. Not a carefully crafted corporate statement, but the truth, about Victoria's corruption, about Rebecca and Emma, about his own transformation. About Sarah. In the Wellington suite, Rebecca was helping Emma with a math worksheet when Claire arrived with the news. He wants to hold a press conference, Rebecca asked, her face paling. With me there? He says it's important, Claire replied, and I think he's right. The rumors are getting worse by the hour. People are starting to question your qualifications, your history. Emma looked up from her homework. Mom, are you in trouble? Because you helped me? Rebecca hugged her daughter close. No, sweetheart, sometimes adults just make things complicated when they don't need to be. That's what Mr. Morrison said, Emma declared, with the certainty of childhood. He said grown-ups forget what's important because they're too busy looking at numbers instead of people. Rebecca felt something shift inside her at Emma's words. She had spent so long being afraid, of losing jobs, of not providing for Emma, of being judged for their circumstances. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. Tell Mr. Morrison we'll be there, she told Claire. In the hotel's security office, Marcus Reynolds watched the lobby monitors with growing concern. The crowd outside was getting larger, and not everyone was press. He spotted Richard Manning in the periphery, speaking intently with a group of men in expensive suits. Sir, he radioed to Alexander, Mr. Manning is here with what appears to be several board members. They don't look happy. Let them come, Alexander replied. It's time everyone heard the whole story. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows through the lobby's grand windows, hotel staff began quietly gathering near the margins of the space. Housekeepers, bellhops, kitchen workers, people who usually stayed invisible to guests were emerging, drawn by the sense that something momentous was about to happen. Janet approached Alexander as he prepared to leave his office. The board. He's threatening to remove you as CEO. Victoria's allegations combined with the stock price drop, they're saying you've lost control. Alexander straightened his tie, a slight smile playing at his lips. Maybe that's exactly what needed to happen. He picked up the pages he'd written, notes for a speech that would either save or end his career. Sometimes losing control is the only way to find what really matters. The Morrison Grand's lobby had never felt so alive. Cameras flashed like lightning as Alexander Morrison stepped onto the makeshift platform. Rebecca and Emma stood nearby, their presence causing a fresh wave of whispers and speculation through the crowd. Richard Manning and his group of board members positioned themselves prominently in the front row, their expressions a mixture of anger and anticipation. They clearly expected Alexander to cave under pressure, to offer the standard corporate apologies and retreat behind legal shields. Instead, he did something unprecedented. He stepped away from the podium and its prepared statement. When he spoke, his voice carried naturally through the space as if he were having a conversation rather than giving a speech. 20 years ago, he began, my sister Sarah told me something I didn't want to hear. She said I was so focused on building walls to protect myself that I couldn't see the people I was shutting out. The next day she left. I never saw her again. A murmur ran through the crowd. Alexander Morrison, the notorious Ice King, was talking about personal loss. The reporters leaned forward, their pens poised. I built this company on the belief that efficiency and profitability were all that mattered. I created protocols and procedures to eliminate what I saw as human weakness. And in doing so, I became exactly what Sarah feared, someone who saw people as numbers on a spreadsheet. He gestured to Rebecca and Emma. 2 days ago, I found this young lady sleeping in our hotel bathroom, not because she was homeless by choice, but because her mother, one of our most dedicated employees, had been forced into an impossible situation by the very policies I created. Richard Manning stepped forward. This is absurd. You're destroying shareholder value over some sob story? No, Alexander replied calmly. I'm rebuilding this company's value on a foundation of actual hospitality. Victoria Manning's corruption wasn't just about money. It was about the culture of ruthlessness I encouraged. A culture where employees were seen as disposable, where compassion was viewed as weakness. He turned to address the gathering of hotel staff. Every morning you come to work and create something remarkable. You turn these buildings of marble and glass into homes away from home. You make strangers feel like family. That's not weakness. That's the very essence of hospitality. Janet Chen, watching from the side, saw the shift happening in real time. The reporter's skeptical expressions were softening. The hotel staff stood straighter, their faces proud. Even some of the board members were exchanging uncertain glances. The Family First initiative isn't just a program, Alexander continued. It's a recognition that our strength lies in our people. Every employee who worries about childcare instead of focusing on our guests. Every talented manager who leaves because they can't afford to stay. Every person who has to choose between their job and their family. These aren't just personal problems. They're business problems. He walked over to Emma, who was watching him with wide eyes. This young lady drew a picture of what she thought a hotel could be. Not just a luxury box for wealthy travelers, but a true community. And she was right. That's why, effective immediately, every Morrison International property will be implementing comprehensive employee support programs, including childcare facilities, education assistance and emergency housing support. Richard Manning laughed derisively. The board will never approve this. Actually, Janet stepped forward, tablet in hand, preliminary projections show that reducing turnover and increasing employee retention would more than offset the program costs within 18 months, not to mention the positive impact on our brand value. A young reporter raised her hand. Mr. Morrison, are you concerned about Victoria Manning's allegations regarding your relationship with Ms. Sullivan? Alexander smiled. Ms. Manning's allegations are a desperate attempt to distract from her own misconduct. The evidence of her corruption has been turned over to the authorities. As for Ms. Sullivan, her promotion was based entirely on her exceptional record as a hotel manager before our acquisition of her previous property, an acquisition that, I now realize, prioritized profits over people. He paused, looking out over the crowd. I've spent 20 years trying to prove my sister wrong. Today, I'm finally ready to admit that she was right. Morrison International isn't just changing its policies, we're changing our entire approach to hospitality, and we're starting right here, right now. As if on cue, Claire began distributing packets to the press, detailed outlines of the Family First initiative, complete with financial projections and implementation timelines. The reporters flipped through them eagerly, their stories already taking shape. Emma tugged at Alexander's sleeve. Does this mean we don't have to hide anymore? She asked, her voice carrying clearly in the sudden quiet. Alexander knelt down to her level. No more hiding, he promised, for any of us. The hours following, Alexander's press conference transformed the Morrison Grand Hotel into a hub of frenetic activity. Social media exploded with clips of his speech, particularly the moment with Emma, which had already gone viral. Morrison transformation and hospitality with heart were trending nationwide. In the hotel's executive conference room, Janet Chen watched multiple news feeds while coordinating with their PR team. The story was evolving by the minute, but not in the way anyone had expected. Former employees were coming forward with their own stories about Victoria Manning's intimidation tactics. Current staff members were sharing personal accounts of struggling to balance work and family obligations. The stock's stabilizing, Claire reported, studying her tablet. Actually, it's starting to climb. The market's responding to the positive press coverage. Janet nodded, but her attention was drawn to another screen where a financial analyst was speaking. What we're seeing at Morrison International isn't just a PR move. It's a fundamental reimagining of corporate culture in the hospitality industry. The proposed Family First initiative could set new standards for employee retention and satisfaction across the sector. A knock at the door interrupted them. Sarah Martinez from HR entered, looking both exhausted and energized. You need to see this, she said, pulling up her own presentation. We've received over 300 internal applications for the pilot programs in just the last 2 hours. And not just from our New York properties, employees across the country are reaching out. Meanwhile, in a quieter corner of the hotel, Rebecca sat with Emma in the Wellington Suites living room. They were surrounded by real estate listings. Janet had assigned a team to help them find proper housing near Emma's new school. "Mom," Emma asked, looking up from a brochure about the private academy where she'd been offered immediate enrollment. "Are we really going to have our own apartment again?" Rebecca pulled her daughter close. "Yes, sweetheart, and this time we're here to stay. And I can come to the hotel after school? To the new children's center? Once it's built," Rebecca smiled. "Though from what I hear, you're helping design it." Emma beamed, reaching for her sketchbook. "Mr. Morrison said my ideas were invaluable input from our target demographic. I'm not sure what that means, but he liked my drawing of the reading nook with the treehouse theme." Rebecca watched her daughter sketch, marveling at how quickly their lives had changed. Just days ago, they'd been on the brink of complete disaster. Now, her phone buzzed with a message from Alexander. "Emergency board meeting in progress. Could use your expertise. Bring Emma's designs if possible." In the main boardroom, the atmosphere was tense, but not in the way Alexander had expected. Rather than facing universal opposition, the board had split into factions. Richard Manning and his allies sat on one side, glowering, while a growing group of supporters occupied the other. "The numbers don't lie," Patricia Wong, one of the senior board members, was saying. "Our industry has one of the highest turnover rates in the corporate world. The cost of constantly training new employees, the loss of institutional knowledge, the impact on guest satisfaction. It's all quantifiable." "This is about more than numbers," Richard Manning snapped. "Morrison is completely departing from the company's core philosophy." "You mean Victoria's philosophy?" Alexander asked quietly as he entered the room, Rebecca following with Emma's portfolio. "The one that led to systematic fraud and employee exploitation." Richard's face reddened. "The charges against my wife are fabricated." "Actually," a new voice interrupted, "they're not." All heads turned to see Thomas Bradford, head of legal, walking in with a thick folder. "The forensic accounting team just finished their preliminary report. The evidence against Victoria Manning isn't just conclusive, it's overwhelming. And Mr. Manning, you might want to contact your own lawyer. There are some interesting transfers between your personal accounts and those shell companies your wife established." Richard's face went from red to pale. Before he could respond, Patricia Wong spoke up again. "I move to formally endorse the Family First initiative and allocate the requested budget for immediate implementation." "Second," called another board member. "This is insanity," Richard protested, but his voice had lost its conviction. Alexander turned to Rebecca. "Ms. Sullivan, would you share your vision for the pilot program at the Morrison Grand? Show them what real hospitality looks like." As Rebecca began her presentation, incorporating Emma's designs and her own extensive management experience, Alexander watched the board members' reactions. One by one, he could see them beginning to understand. This wasn't just about charity or public relations. It was about building something sustainable, something that would transform not just their company, but perhaps the entire industry. His phone buzzed with a message from Claire. "You need to see this. Turn on CNN." Alexander gestured to Janet, who activated the boardroom's main screen. There, addressing a crowd outside another luxury hotel chain's headquarters, was their biggest competitor's CEO. "In light of recent developments in our industry," the competitor was saying, "we are launching our own comprehensive employee support initiative." Alexander couldn't help but smile. The ripples were becoming waves. The sun was setting over Manhattan, painting the Morrison Grand's windows in sheets of gold, when Alexander finally returned to his office. The day's events had left him exhausted, but oddly energized. On his desk, Claire had organized the afternoon's developments into neat folders: press coverage, employee responses, competitor reactions, and board meeting minutes. A soft knock at his door revealed Emma, clutching her sketchbook. "Mr. Morrison, Mum said you wanted to see my new designs for the children's center." "Come in," he smiled, clearing space on his desk. "And please, call me Alexander." As Emma spread out her drawings, Alexander noticed something different about her. The fearful hiding child from the bathroom was gone, replaced by someone confident and excited about the future. Her latest sketches showed not just play areas and study spaces, but detailed plans for how different age groups could share the facilities. "See," she explained, pointing to a carefully drawn floor plan. "The little kids can have their nap time here while the older kids do homework in the quiet room. And this space can be for parents to work if they need to stay late, so they can be near their children." "You've thought of everything," Alexander commented, genuinely impressed. "Not everything," Emma admitted. "Mom says we need to think about safety and budgets and stuff, but she also says sometimes you need to dream big first and figure out the details later." "Your mom is very wise." "She is," Emma agreed, then hesitated. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Your sister Sarah, do you think she'd like what you're doing now?" Alexander felt his throat tighten. "I hope so," he managed. "I wish she could see it." "Maybe she can," Emma said with a child's simple wisdom. "Mom says good things have a way of finding the people who need to see them." Just then, Rebecca appeared in the doorway, looking slightly flustered. "Emma, honey, don't bother Mr. Morrison. He's had a long day." "She's not bothering me at all," Alexander assured her. "In fact, she's helping me see some things more clearly." Rebecca smiled, entering the office. The construction team just finished their preliminary assessment of the Richardson suite. They say the renovation for the Children's Center could be completed within 6 weeks. "Make it 4, Alexander decided. "We'll pay overtime if necessary. These families have waited long enough." His phone buzzed with an urgent message from Claire. "Turn on the evening news now." Alexander reached for his remote, activating the office's wall-mounted screen. A familiar face filled the screen, Victoria Manning being led into a police station in handcuffs. The caption read, "Former hotel executive arrested for corporate fraud." But it was the next segment that made them all stop breathing. The reporter was interviewing a woman outside the police station, a woman with striking green eyes that Alexander hadn't seen in 20 years. "Sarah Morrison, you've been working with the FBI's corporate fraud division for 15 years. What can you tell us about this case?" Alexander sank into his chair, staring at his sister's image. She looked different, older, more serious, but her eyes still held that same determination he remembered. "The investigation into Victoria Manning's activities revealed systematic fraud," Sarah was saying. "But more importantly, it exposed a corporate culture that prioritized profits over people. The changes being implemented at Morrison International represent a significant shift in how the hospitality industry views its responsibilities to employees and society at large." The reporter pressed, "And your connection to Alexander Morrison. Did that influence the investigation?" Sarah's face softened slightly. "My brother and I haven't spoken in 20 years, but watching his press conference today, listening to him talk about the importance of putting people first, maybe some walls are finally coming down." Rebecca quietly gathered Emma's drawings. "We should go," she whispered, but Alexander shook his head. "Stay," he said, reaching for his phone. "Please." His hands shook slightly as he dialed the number Claire had already sent him. When the call connected, there was a moment of complete silence. "Hello, Alex." Sarah's voice was exactly as he remembered. "Sarah," he managed. I've been looking for you." "I know. I've been watching. All these years I've been watching and waiting, hoping you'd remember what really matters." "I'm sorry it took me so long." "Don't be," she replied, and he could hear the smile in her voice. "Some changes need time to take root. The important thing is that they're happening now." Alexander looked at Emma, still arranging her drawings on his desk, and Rebecca, who had spent years fighting to give her daughter a better life. He thought about all the other families in his hotels, all the stories he'd never bothered to learn until now. "Sarah," he said, "I'd like you to meet some people. And I'd like to hear about your life, if you're willing to share it." "I'd like that," she replied. "I'd like that very much." The private dining room of the Morrison Grand felt too small and too large at the same time. Alexander sat at the elegantly set table, straightening his tie for the 100th time. Sarah would be arriving any minute, their first face-to-face meeting in 2 decades. The room temperature is perfect, The menu is exactly as requested. And security has cleared the entire floor, Claire reported, sensing his anxiety. Should I ask Rebecca to... No, Alexander interrupted gently. She has enough on her plate with the new programs launching. This is something I need to face on my own. The door opened and there she was. Sarah Morrison, Special Agent Sarah Morrison, he reminded himself, stood in the doorway. She wore a simple black suit, her dark hair streaked with silver, but her green eyes were exactly as he remembered. They stared at each other for a long moment, 20 years of silence stretching between them. Then Sarah spoke, her voice soft but steady. "You still can't tie a bow tie properly," she said, gesturing to his slightly askew neckwear. Alexander laughed, the tension breaking. "Some things never change, and some things do," she countered, stepping into the room. "I've been reading about your Family First initiative. It's not what I expected from the Ice King of Hospitality." "That name never really fit," he admitted, pulling out a chair for her. "I just spent a long time pretending it did." As they settled into their seats, Sarah pulled out a worn leather portfolio. "I brought something you might want to see," she said, opening it carefully. Inside was a collection of newspaper clippings, magazine articles, and photographs, all about Alexander and Morrison International. "You kept track of me?" he asked, touched by the revelation. "Every step of the way," she nodded. "The Boston acquisition, the Dubai expansion, the corporate restructuring. I watched you build your empire, and I watched how it changed you. You could have reached out. Would you have listened?" Her question wasn't accusatory, just honest. "The brother I knew disappeared long before I left, Alex. He got buried under spreadsheets and profit margins." Alexander picked up one of the older clippings, a review of the Morrison Grand's opening. "I thought I was protecting myself," he admitted. "After you left, after what happened with Dad's business, I convinced myself that emotions were a liability. And now," Sarah leaned forward, studying his face, "now I have an 8-year-old girl teaching me about hotel design," he smiled, "and a former receptionist revolutionizing our management structure, and employees sharing stories I should have known years ago." Their conversation was interrupted by a discreet knock. Claire entered with their first course, but she wasn't alone. Emma had somehow found her way to the private dining room, clutching her ever-present sketchbook. "I'm so sorry," Claire began, but Sarah's face lit up. "You must be Emma," she said, warmly. "I've heard about your wonderful ideas for the Children's Center." Emma looked between the siblings, clearly noting their resemblance. "But you have the same eyes I do," she observed, "green like forest leaves." Sarah patted the chair next to her. "Would you like to show me your designs? I used to draw too when I was your age." As Emma eagerly spread out her sketches, Alexander watched his sister interact with the child who had inadvertently sparked this transformation. Sarah asked thoughtful questions, made genuine suggestions, and treated Emma's ideas with real respect. "You know," Sarah said, examining a particularly detailed drawing, "when Alex and I were kids, we used to build blanket forts in our father's office. We'd pretend it was a magical hotel where everyone was welcome." "What happened?" Emma asked. Innocently, Sarah and Alexander exchanged glances. "Life happened," Sarah answered. "Sometimes grown-ups forget their childhood dreams because they're trying so hard to be successful. But now we're remembering," Alexander added softly. "Thanks." "To you, Emma." Emma beamed at the praise but then turned serious. "Mr. Morrison, Alexander," she corrected herself. "Mum says you're making the hotel a place where families can stay together. Is that like your blanket fort hotel?" Sarah reached across the table and squeezed her brother's hand. "Yes," she said. "I think it's exactly like that. Just took us a while to find our way back." The rest of the evening flowed naturally, with Emma's presence somehow making the reunion easier. She acted as a bridge between past and present, her innocent questions allowing the siblings to share memories they'd both buried. When Claire finally came to escort Emma back to her mother, Sarah turned to Alexander with tears in her eyes. "That little girl," she said, "she reminds me of someone." "Who?" "You. Before you started building walls instead of blanket forts. The Richardson suite was unrecognizable. What had once been an underutilized space was now a bustling construction site. Workers moved purposefully through the area, following blueprints that merged Emma's imaginative designs with professional specifications. Rebecca stood in what would soon be the main activity center, watching as colorful walls began to take shape. The construction team had worked overtime to incorporate every feasible element of Emma's vision, from the reading nook, designed like a treehouse, to the homework area with its constellation-painted ceiling. The safety inspectors approved all, so the modifications, Janet reported, joining her with a tablet full of updates. We're actually ahead of schedule. And under budget, Rebecca added, proud of her team's efficient management. How are the other properties progressing? 17. Locations have already identified suitable spaces for their family centers. The Miami property is almost ready to launch their pilot program, and Chicago starts construction next week. The sound of excited voices drew their attention to the entrance. A group of hotel employees had arrived for the scheduled tour, part of Rebecca's initiative to keep staff involved in the transformation process. Many had brought their children, who stared wide-eyed at the emerging wonderland. "Miss Sullivan," one of the housekeepers called out, "is it true our kids can really come here while we work?" "Not just come here," Rebecca smiled. "They'll learn. Here, play here, grow here, and you'll be able to check on them whenever you need to." The children had gravitated toward a partially finished wall, where Emma's original drawings hung, protected behind plexiglass. These sketches had become something of a legend among the staff, the artwork that helped change everything. Alexander arrived as Rebecca was explaining the different zones planned for the space. He stood back, watching her interact with the employees. Gone was the fearful receptionist hiding her circumstances. In her place stood a confident leader who understood both the business and human aspects of hospitality. "The board's quarterly review just finished," he announced when there was a break in the tour. "They've unanimously approved expansion of the initiative to all properties." "Even Richard Manning's allies?" Rebecca asked, surprised. "Richard resigned this morning," Alexander replied. "Seems the investigation into Victoria's activities revealed some interesting connections. He's cooperating with authorities now." A small figure darted past them. Emma, just arrived from school, rushing to check on the progress of her vision. She was followed by Sarah, who had extended her stay in New York to help with the transition. "The FBI's investigation is officially closed," Sarah informed them. "Victoria's facing serious charges, but she's offering a plea deal. Apparently, she doesn't want her methods exposed in a public trial." "Good," Alexander said firmly. "The less disruption to our employees, the better." They watched as Emma led her own impromptu tour for the other children, explaining each feature with passionate detail. The kids followed her like a Pied Piper, their eyes shining with possibility. "You know," Sarah mused, "I always thought I was fighting corporate corruption from the outside, but sometimes the biggest changes come from within." "Speaking of changes," Alexander turned to his sister, "have you considered my offer?" Sarah smiled. "To head the new employee advocacy division? It's tempting. After 20 years in law enforcement, focusing on prevention instead of prosecution would be a nice change." "The team could use your experience," Rebecca added. "And Emma would love having her new aunt around more often." "Aunt Sarah," Emma called out as if on cue. "Come see, they finished the constellation ceiling in the homework room." As they followed Emma's excited beckoning, Alexander noticed something remarkable. The construction workers, the hotel staff, the children, everyone was smiling. There was an energy in the air, a sense of purpose that no profit margin could measure. A young boy tugged at Alexander's sleeve. "My mum says you're the hotel king," he said solemnly. "Is that true?" Alexander knelt down to the child's level, something that would have been unthinkable just weeks ago. "No," he replied. "I'm just someone who finally remembered what hotels are really for, taking care of people." Sarah overheard and touched his shoulder gently. "Maybe that's what makes the best kind of king," she suggested. As if to emphasize her point, Emma had gathered all the children in the future reading nook. "And here," she was saying, "is where we'll have story time. Mr. Morrison promised to read to us sometimes. He does really good voices for all the characters." Rebecca raised an eyebrow at Alexander, who shrugged sheepishly. "I may have made some promises during our design consultations," he admitted. "The Ice King doing story time," Janet teased, having joined them. "The press would have a field day." Let them, Alexander replied, watching Emma continue her tour. Some things are more important than image. Sarah taught me that a long time ago. I just needed a reminder. The Morrison Grand's ballroom buzzed with anticipation. 3 months had passed since Alexander's transformative press conference, and today marked the official opening of the hotel's family center. The space was filled with employees, their families, media representatives, and industry leaders curious about the innovative program. Emma stood near the podium, wearing a new dress for the occasion, her green eyes sparkling with excitement. She had been chosen to cut the ribbon, a decision that felt perfectly appropriate given her role in inspiring the changes. Rebecca watched, her daughter with pride, still amazed by how far they had come. "Ready for your big moment?" Sarah asked Emma, adjusting the child's ribbon sash. The former FBI agent had officially joined Morrison International last month as head of employee advocacy, bringing her investigative skills and compassionate perspective to the role. "Almost," Emma replied, pulling out her worn sketchbook. "I just want to make sure everything matches my drawings." Alexander joined them, looking relaxed in a way that still surprised those who had known him as the Ice King. "The only thing that's different," he told Emma, "is that the real version is even better than we imagined." Janet Chen approached with the latest numbers on her tablet. "The employee retention rate has increased by 40% since we announced the initiative. We've received over 2,000 applications for positions across all properties, and 3 major hotel chains have reached out about consulting on similar programs." "And the board?" Rebecca asked, though she already knew the answer from the satisfied look on Janet's face. "Completely on board. The positive press and employee satisfaction metrics have translated into tangible business growth. We're seeing increased bookings across all properties, particularly from family-oriented travelers who appreciate our new corporate values." The ceremony began with Alexander taking the podium. The gathered crowd fell silent, many recording on their phones, eager to capture another memorable Morrison moment. "3 months ago," he began, "I stood in our lobby and promised changes. Today, we're not just celebrating the opening of a family center. We're celebrating a fundamental shift in how we view corporate responsibility in the hospitality industry." He gestured to the massive doors leading to the new facility. "Behind these doors isn't just a childcare center or a study space. It's a statement about values, about putting families first, about recognizing that our employees' well-being is inseparable from our success." Rebecca stepped forward to share the practical details. "The center will operate 24 hours a day, accommodating all shifts. We have certified teachers, counselors, and caregivers on staff. Every Morrison International property will have a similar facility within the next 18 months. Emma's moment arrived. As she approached the ribbon with oversized scissors, Alexander knelt beside her. "Would you like to say something?" he whispered. Emma nodded, handing the scissors to Sarah temporarily. She pulled out her original sketch, the one she'd drawn that first day in the Wellington suite, and held it up. "When I drew this," she said, her clear voice carrying across the ballroom, "I was scared. My mom and I didn't have a home, and I was hiding in the hotel. But Mr. Morrison Alexander didn't send me away. He listened, and then he did something even better. He helped make it real." She looked around at the assembled crowd, at the hotel staff who had become like family, at her mother who stood tall and proud, at Sarah who had found her way home, and at Alexander who had learned to tear down his walls. "Mom says hotels are supposed to be places where people feel safe and happy. Now our hotel isn't just that for guests, it's that for everyone who works here too. And that's better than any drawing." The room erupted in applause as Emma cut the ribbon. The doors swung open to reveal the transformed space, a wonder of thoughtful design and practical functionality. Children rushed in, their excited voices echoing through the carefully planned areas. Parents followed, many with tears in their eyes as they realized what this meant for their families. Alexander watched a group of employees giving impromptu tours, pointing out features they had helped design. The maintenance supervisor showed off the child-sized workbench in the creativity corner, while a chef explained the mini kitchen where kids could learn about healthy eating. "You know," Sarah said, joining him, "Dad would be proud of this." Alexander turned to his sister. You think so? He was always so focused on the bottom line. That's because he was afraid of losing everything, she replied. But his real dream, it was to build something that would last, something that would make a difference. You've done that, Alex, just not in the way anyone expected. Rebecca approached, with a group of industry representatives who were eager to learn more about implementing similar programs. The Morrison model, they were calling it, a blueprint for combining business success with social responsibility. Mr. Morrison, one of them began, but Alexander held up his hand. Today isn't about business models or profit strategies, he said. Look around. This is about family, all kinds of family. The ones we're born into, and the ones we build, together. Emma had already gathered a group of children in the reading nook, holding up a storybook. This was the first thing I drew, she told them proudly, and now we can all share it. The sunset painted the Morrison Grand's rooftop garden in warm, golden hues. A week after the family center's opening, Alexander had arranged a private celebration for those who had been instrumental in the transformation. Hotel staff and their families mingled comfortably, the hierarchical barriers of the past completely dissolved. Rebecca stood at the railing, watching Emma play with a group of children. Sons and daughters of housekeepers, chefs, and executives alike. They were building a blanket fort, supervised by Sarah, who was showing them the exact technique she and Alexander had perfected in their childhood. Penny, for your thoughts? Alexander joined her at the railing. I was just thinking about that. First morning, Rebecca replied, when Emma was discovered in the bathroom. If it had been anyone else who found her... If it had been the person I was before finding her, Alexander corrected gently, things would have been very different. Janet approached with Claire, both carrying tablets despite the casual nature of the gathering. Sorry to interrupt, Janet began, but you'll want to see this. The tablets displayed various news sites, all featuring stories about Victoria Manning's plea deal. She had agreed to testify about corporate corruption in exchange for a reduced sentence, but the headlines focused on an unexpected development. She was using her experience to advocate for corporate reform. She's giving interviews about the importance of ethical business practices, Claire explained. Actually citing Morrison, International's transformation as a model for change. Alexander shook his head, smiling slightly. Life has a way of surprising us, doesn't it? Speaking of surprises, Sarah called out, approaching with Emma, who was clutching something behind her back. Someone has a presentation to make. Emma stepped forward, suddenly shy despite her usual confidence. We made something for you, she said, revealing a large handmade book. All of us kids in the family center helped. Alexander opened the book carefully. Each page contained drawings and messages from the children who now spent their days in the center. There were pictures of the reading nook, the homework area, the play spaces, but more importantly, there were stories. Each child had written about what the center meant to their family. My mum can tuck me in at night now, one wrote. I get to see my dad between shifts, said another. I don't have to worry about being alone anymore, a third confided. As Alexander turned the pages, Emma explained, we wanted you to see how many people you helped, not just me and Mom, but everyone. Rebecca watched Alexander's face as he read, seeing the emotion he no longer tried to hide. Sarah squeezed her brother's shoulder, remembering the walls he had built and celebrating their absence. The rooftop gathering continued as the sky darkened and the city lights began to twinkle. The children's fort had become the center of activity, with adults being invited in for very important meetings that seemed to involve a lot of giggling. You know, Janet mused, watching the scene, our quarterly profits are higher than ever, but somehow that doesn't seem like the most important metric anymore. Because it isn't, Alexander replied. The real measure of success is right there. He gestured to where Emma was teaching other children her hotel design techniques, their faces lit with imagination and possibility. To where Rebecca was sharing management strategies with junior staff members, her natural leadership style encouraging and supportive. To where Sarah was organizing a storytelling session in the fort, the children hanging on her every word. We're not just running hotels anymore, he continued. We're building communities, creating spaces where people can grow, learn, and support each other. The profits are just a means to make that possible. A small commotion drew their attention. The children had unanimously decided that Alexander needed to join them in the fort for an emergency board meeting. As he crawled into the blanket structure, his usual corporate dignity completely forgotten, Sarah caught Rebecca's eye. "You know," Sarah said softly, "I spent years trying to protect people from corporate greed. But sometimes the biggest changes come from unexpected places. Sometimes it takes a little girl with a sketchpad to remind us what really matters." Rebecca watched as her daughter solemnly presented Alexander with a very important document, another drawing, this one showing the hotel as a giant blanket fort with a heart at its center. "The heart means it's not just a building," Emma explained to her captive audience. "It's a home for everyone who needs one." Alexander carefully folded the drawing and placed it in his jacket pocket right next to his heart. "Yes," he agreed, looking around at the family he had found and the one he had recovered. "That's exactly what it is." The Morrison Grand's executive office had changed dramatically over the past 6 months. Where once stark minimalism had reigned, now warmth and personality filled the space. Emma's drawings shared wall space with professional artwork, and comfortable seating areas had replaced the intimidating formal furniture. Alexander sat at his desk, reviewing a proposal that would have been unthinkable in his previous life. The Morrison Educational Foundation, a new initiative to provide college scholarships for employees' children. Sarah had developed the program, drawing on her own experiences and the stories she'd gathered from hotel staff. "The numbers look promising," Janet said, highlighting key figures on her tablet. "By reallocating some of our corporate entertainment budget and partnering with universities, we can fund 50 full scholarships in the first year alone." "Make it 75, Alexander decided. "Use some of my personal bonus fund. Education shouldn't have a quota." A knock at the door announced Rebecca's arrival. She carried a thick folder and wore the confident expression of someone who had grown completely into her role as general manager. "The Boston property sent their final report," she announced. "The family center there is already at capacity, with a waiting list for the after-school programs, and there's something else you should see." She opened her folder to reveal a newspaper article. The headline read, "Former hotel manager returns as consultant. Victoria Manning helps companies build ethical workplaces." "She's been giving workshops on corporate responsibility," Rebecca explained. "Apparently her time in rehabilitation gave her a new perspective. She's even requested to visit our family center as part of her community service, but also to understand what she fought against for so long." Alexander studied the article thoughtfully. "What do you think? Should we allow it?" "I think," Rebecca replied carefully, "that if we truly believe in transformation, we have to extend that belief to everyone, even former adversaries." Sarah entered the office, catching the end of their conversation. "I just got off the phone with Victoria's probation officer," she said. "Her request appears genuine. She's been doing remarkable work with corporate ethics programs." "The woman who tried to destroy us is now promoting our values," Janet mused. "Life does have a sense of irony." Their discussion was interrupted by sounds of excitement from the family center down the hall. Emma's voice carried clearly, "Look, they're here. The books are here." The adults exchanged smiles and followed the commotion. The center's reading nook had just received its first shipment of books, hundreds of them, carefully selected to inspire and educate. Emma stood amid the opened boxes, carefully arranging volumes on the custom-built shelves she had designed. "Remember to leave space for the new arrivals," Alexander reminded her. "The international folk tales are coming next week." "I know," Emma replied without looking up from her task. "I've got a whole section planned for stories from around the world. Sarah helped me organize it by region." The center had become more than just a childcare facility. It was a place of learning, growth, and community. Children of different backgrounds played together, learned together, and dreamed together. Parents could focus on their work, knowing their children were not just safe, but thriving. "Oh," Emma suddenly remembered something, rushing to her backpack. "My teacher wants to bring our whole class here for a field trip. She says it's a perfect example of corporate social responsibility, whatever that means." Alexander knelt beside her as she pulled out the permission slip. It means doing the right thing, even when it's not the easiest thing, like your mom did, taking care of you no matter what. Like Sarah did, standing up for what she believed in, like you did, showing us all a better way. Emma considered this, then asked, "Is that why you're helping Victoria? Because it's the right thing?" "Sometimes," Sarah answered for her brother, "the right thing is giving people a chance to change, just like Alexander changed when he met you." Rebecca watched her daughter return to organizing books, now explaining to other children the complex system she'd developed. "She's going to run this whole company someday, isn't she?" she whispered to Alexander. "I wouldn't be surprised," he smiled. "The future of hospitality should be in the hands of someone who understands its true meaning." As if to emphasize his point, Emma was now organizing a storytelling session, making sure every child had a comfortable spot and could see the pictures. The book she'd chosen was about a cold-hearted king who learned to love his kingdom through the wisdom of a child. "Fascinating. You know," Janet observed, "our competitors keep asking how we maintain such high employee satisfaction and guest loyalty. They don't understand that it's not about programs or policies. It's about family," Alexander finished. "The one we choose to build together." Sarah squeezed her brother's hand. "Dad used to say that a hotel is only as strong as its foundation. He just didn't realize that the strongest foundation isn't built with concrete, it's built with heart." The Wellington suite, where everything had begun, had been transformed into something entirely new. No longer just a luxury accommodation, it now served as a transition space for employees facing housing emergencies, a practical implementation of the lessons learned from Rebecca and Emma's story. Today, however, it had been prepared for a special occasion. Victoria Manning's first visit to the Morrison Grand since her departure. The choice of location was deliberate, a reminder of how much could change in a single room. "Are you sure about this?" Rebecca asked Alexander as they waited. "Having her here in this particular suite?" "Emma suggested it," he replied. "She said, if this room could help me and Mom start over, maybe it can help Mrs. Manning too." Sarah stood by the window where months ago Emma had first looked out over the city with hope. "Victoria's rehabilitation counselor says she's done remarkable work. Her corporate ethics programs have already helped several companies identify and address toxic workplace cultures." The door opened and Victoria entered. She looked different, humbler somehow, without the sharp edges of her former persona. She carried a small portfolio and wore a simple business suit rather than her once trademark designer wear. "Mr. Morrison," she began, then corrected herself. "Alexander, thank you for allowing this visit." "Thank Emma," he replied. "She's the one who taught us all about second chances." Victoria's eyes moistened slightly. "I've been following the changes here. The Family First Initiative, the Education Foundation. It's everything I fought against, and everything I was wrong about." She opened her portfolio, revealing newspaper clippings about Morrison International's transformation. "In my corporate ethics workshops, I use your company as a case study. Not just the negative, what I did wrong, but the positive. How true change is possible when we remember what really matters." Rebecca stepped forward. "Would you like to see the family center? The children are preparing for their international cultural fair. Emma's been teaching them about hospitality traditions from around the world." As they walked through the hotel, Victoria absorbed the changes. Employees greeted them warmly, without the fear that had once permeated the corridors. The sound of children's laughter echoed from the family center, where Emma was directing a rehearsal for their upcoming presentation. "And this is," Emma was saying to her rapt audience, "is how families in Japan show hospitality. You bow to welcome your guests, showing respect and warmth." The children practiced, giggling as they wobbled through their bows. She spotted the adults and waved enthusiastically. "Mrs. Manning, would you like to learn about hospitality traditions too? We're going to show everyone at the cultural fair." Victoria looked startled at the warm welcome. I would like that very much," she managed. Emma launched into her presentation, explaining how different cultures welcomed visitors and made them feel at home. Her natural enthusiasm was infectious, And soon Victoria found herself learning proper tea ceremony etiquette from a 7-year-old expert. "She's remarkable," Victoria said quietly to Alexander. "She sees the world as it should be, not just as it is." "That's why we listen to her," he replied. "Sometimes the best wisdom comes from those who haven't learned to build walls." Yet, Sarah joined them carrying Emma's original sketchbook, now a treasured part of the hotel's history. "We're creating an archive," she explained, "documenting the transformation for future hoteliers to study. Would you be willing to contribute your perspective, both from before and after?" Victoria looked around the center at the children playing and learning, at the parents who could visit during their breaks, at the community that had blossomed in what was once a coldly efficient business. "Yes," she said firmly, "people need to understand that success isn't just about profit margins. Real success is measured in smiles, in security, in the knowledge that you're making life better for others." Emma approached with a drawing in her hands. "I made this for you," she said, holding it out to Victoria. "It's the hotel, but with all the walls made of glass, so everyone can see each other and nobody has to hide." Victoria accepted the drawing with trembling hands. "Thank you," she whispered, "for showing us all how to see clearly." Alexander watched the interaction, remembering his own journey from Ice King to compassionate leader. "Sometimes," he mused, "the most valuable business lessons come in the simplest packages. Like a child's drawing, or a sister's wisdom, or a mother's courage." Rebecca smiled, watching Emma return to her cultural presentation. "Or a hotel that remembers its true purpose, to be a home for everyone who walks through its doors." Sucker. Sun streamed through the family center's windows, casting warm light on the gathered faces, past adversaries now united in understanding, broken families now healed, and a future bright with possibility. In the background, Emma's voice rang out clear and confident. "And that's why we say welcome in every language, because hospitality is universal. It's about opening our hearts, not just our doors." 1 year had passed since the day Alexander found Emma in the hotel bathroom. The Morrison Grand's lobby was once again filled with cameras and reporters, but this time they were there to cover the first annual Morrison Hospitality Conference, a gathering of industry leaders focused on ethical business practices and employee welfare. The conference had been Emma's idea, naturally. "If other hotels learn from us," she had reasoned, "more families can be happy like we are." Her simple wisdom had once again sparked something transformative. Alexander stood at the podium looking out over the assembled crowd. Hotel executives from around the world sat alongside Morrison International employees of all levels. In the front row, Emma sat between Rebecca and Sarah, her ever-present sketchbook open to a fresh page. "A year ago," Alexander began, "I thought I knew everything about running a successful hotel chain. I had spreadsheets, protocols, and profit, margins all perfectly calculated. What I didn't have was understanding, real understanding of what hospitality truly means." He gestured to the family center's open doors, where children could be seen engaged in various activities. "This isn't just a childcare facility, it's a statement of values, a declaration that our employees' families are part of our corporate family. That success is measured not just in dollars but in dignity." Victoria Manning stepped forward to share her perspective. She had become an unexpected ally in spreading the message of corporate transformation. "I spent years believing that compassion was incompatible with business success," she admitted. "I've never been more grateful to be proven wrong." The presentation continued, with Rebecca introducing the Morrison Educational Foundation's first scholarship recipients, 25 employees' children who would be attending college in the fall, their dreams supported by the company that had become more than just an employer. "But perhaps," Rebecca smiled, "our most important academic achievement is a bit younger." She gestured to Emma, who proudly held up her latest report card, straight A's with a special commendation for her project on international hospitality traditions. During the lunch break, Alexander found himself in a quiet corner with Sarah, watching the interaction between conference attendees. Employee children were giving tours of the family center, explaining its features with pride and enthusiasm. "Remember when we used to play hotel as kids?" Sarah asked softly. How we'd pretend our blanket fort was the finest establishment in town. We didn't pretend, Alexander replied. We were just seeing it clearly before adult complications got in the way. Emma helped me remember that. Janet approached with the latest financial reports. The numbers are in from the first year of the Family First initiative, she announced. Employee retention up 60%, guest satisfaction scores at record highs, and profits, she paused for effect, exceeded all projections. Because happy employees make happy guests, Emma chimed in, having wandered over with her latest sketch. And happy guests tell their friends, and their friends come stay with us, and everybody wins. Alexander laughed. I believe we've found our future CEO, he said, ruffling Emma's hair. The afternoon sessions focused on practical implementation of employee support programs. Hotel executives asked detailed questions about costs, logistics, and results. But the most impactful moments came from the employees themselves, sharing stories of how their lives had changed. A housekeeper spoke about being able to attend her son's school events for the first time. A maintenance worker described how the Education Assistance Program had helped his daughter become the first in their family to attend college. A chef shared how the emergency housing program had kept his family together during a difficult time. As the day drew to a close, Emma took the stage for a special presentation. The children from the family center had prepared a performance, a musical journey through hospitality traditions around the world. They sang songs of welcome in different languages, demonstrated traditional greetings, and shared stories of kindness from various cultures. And that's why, Emma concluded, her voice clear and confident, a hotel isn't just a building. It's a place where everyone belongs, where we take care of each other, where families grow stronger together. Alexander watched from the side, remembering the frightened child from a year ago. Now Emma stood tall, surrounded by friends, secure in the knowledge that she and her mother were part of something bigger than themselves. Victoria joined him, her own eyes moist. I spent so long trying to tear down what I didn't understand, she said quietly. Thank you for showing me there was a better way. Thank Emma, he replied. She's the one who showed us all. The evening following the conference found the Morrison Grand's rooftop garden transformed into a celebration space. Twinkling lights strung between potted trees created a magical atmosphere as employees and their families gathered to mark the one-year anniversary of their transformation. Emma had taken charge of decorations naturally. Her artistic touch was evident in the hand-painted welcome signs in multiple languages and the creative arrangement of comfortable seating areas that encouraged conversation and connection. The Ice King's palace has become a warm hearth, Janet remarked to Alexander as they watched the celebrations. And our profits have never been better. Funny how that works. Not funny at all, Rebecca joined them, professional as always in her role as general manager, but with a mother's pride shining in her eyes. It's simple math, really. Happy employees create happy guests become loyal customers, and loyal customers bring new business. Sarah appeared with a tablet, displaying the latest news coverage. The conference is already making waves. 3 major hotel chains have announced similar initiatives, and the Industry Association is drafting new guidelines for employee support programs. Alexander smiled, watching Emma organize a storytelling circle near the garden's central fountain. Children and adults alike gathered to share tales from their various cultural backgrounds, each story adding to the rich tapestry of their community. You know, he said thoughtfully, I spent years thinking leadership meant maintaining distance, staying above the personal elements of business. I never realized that true leadership means getting closer, understanding the human stories behind the statistics. Victoria, who had been invited to join the celebration, approached their group. I've been asked to write a book, she announced, about corporate transformation and ethical leadership. They want to use Morrison International as the central case study. You should interview Emma, Sarah suggested with a laugh. She's the real architect of all this. As if summoned by her name, Emma bounced over, excitement radiating from her face. Alexander, Mum, come quick, we're doing something special. They followed her to the storytelling circle, where the children had arranged themselves in a pattern. On Emma's signal, they began a performance they had secretly prepared. a narrative told through movement and words about the hotel's transformation. One child played Alexander, walking stiffly and checking spreadsheets. Another was Emma, hiding, but hopeful. Others represented Rebecca, Sarah, Janet, and even Victoria. As the story unfolded, the rigid movement softened. The separate players came together, and the performance ended with everyone joining hands in a circle of connection. "You see," Emma explained to the applauding audience, "that's what happened. Here, we all learned to be part of the same story." Alexander felt Sarah squeeze his hand. "She's right, you know," his sister whispered. "We're all part of something bigger now." The celebration continued as the sun set over Manhattan, painting the sky in brilliant colors. Employees shared meals together, children played between the gardens, paths, and the barriers that once divided them had completely dissolved. Rebecca found a quiet moment with Alexander near the rooftop's edge. "Thank you," she said simply, "not just for helping us, but for being willing to change, for showing that it's never too late to choose a different path." "I should be thanking you," he replied. "You and Emma showed me what I'd forgotten, that true success isn't built on protocols and profit margins. It's built on people, on family, on the courage to care." Their conversation was interrupted by Emma's voice, rising above the gentle murmur of the celebration. She had gathered everyone for a special moment. "1 year ago," she announced with the poise of a natural leader, "this hotel started becoming what it was always supposed to be, a place where everyone belongs, where no one has to hide or be afraid, where we're all family." She held up her original sketchbook, its pages now worn with use and love. "My first drawing was just a dream, but look around. The real thing is so much better. Because it's not just a building anymore, it's a home, our home." The gathered crowd applauded, many wiping tears from their eyes. Alexander looked around at the family he had found and rediscovered, at Sarah, who had helped him remember who he used to be, at Rebecca, who had shown him the strength of a parent's love, at Janet and Claire, who had embraced the change with open hearts, at Victoria, who had found redemption through understanding, and at Emma, the catalyst who had started it all. "You know what the best part is?" Emma continued, her green eyes sparkling in the twilight. "This is just the beginning. Because when you build something with love, it keeps growing and growing, just like a family." As the stars began to appear above the Manhattan skyline, the Morrison Grand stood as a beacon of transformation, not just a luxury hotel, but a testament to the power of compassion, the strength of community, and the simple wisdom of a child who dared to dream of a better way. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Emma's new bedroom, illuminating the wall covered with her artwork. Among her latest drawings was something special, architectural plans for a treehouse reading nook she'd designed for the newest Morrison International property in Chicago. "Emma," Rebecca called from the kitchen of their comfortable apartment, just 2 blocks from the Morrison Grand, "don't forget your presentation materials." Today was a big day. Emma had been invited to speak at a special assembly at her school about corporate social responsibility. The fact that a 9-year-old was giving such a presentation might have seemed unusual, but Emma had become something of a celebrity in the business world. As she gathered her materials, Emma paused to look at the family photos on her desk. There she was with her mom at her school's honor roll ceremony. Another showed her with Alexander and Sarah at the family center's first anniversary celebration. A third captured a moment from Victoria's latest visit, where she'd helped Emma develop a children's program about business ethics. At the Morrison Grand, Alexander stood in the lobby, watching the morning rush with satisfaction. The space hummed with positive energy, employees greeting each other warmly, children heading to the family center for before-school activities, guests commenting on the unique atmosphere of welcome that permeated the hotel. Sarah joined him, coffee in hand. "Ready for the big announcement?" He nodded, patting his jacket pocket where an important document waited. After months of preparation, Morrison International was about to launch its most ambitious initiative yet, the Global Family Alliance, a partnership between hotel chains worldwide to implement employee support programs and ethical business practices. The legal team just finished reviewing the final agreements, Janet reported, approaching with her ever-present tablet. 23 hotel groups have signed on as founding members. Victoria's corporate ethics program will be a cornerstone of the training requirements. The lobby's energy shifted as Rebecca and Emma arrived. Emma wore her school uniform with a special edition, a professionally made name badge identifying her as Junior Hospitality Consultant. The title had been Alexander's idea, acknowledging her ongoing contributions to the company's evolution. "There's my favorite consultant," he greeted her warmly. "Ready for your big speech?" Emma nodded confidently. "I'm going to tell them about how one person can make a difference, even if they're small, and how sometimes the best way to solve big problems is to think about what families need." "Speaking of families," Sarah interjected with a smile, "we have a surprise for your presentation." She gestured toward the entrance, where a group of children and parents from various Morrison International properties had gathered. They had flown in from hotels across the country to support Emma's presentation, each with their own story of how the Family First initiative had changed their lives. "We thought you might like some real-life examples for your speech," Rebecca explained, watching her daughter's face light up with joy. Emma rushed to greet her friends, the son of a Miami hotel chef who was now attending advanced culinary classes, the daughter of a Chicago housekeeper who had won a national art competition, the twins from Boston whose father's engineering degree was being funded by the Education Foundation. As the children chatted excitedly, Alexander observed the scene with satisfaction. The Morrison Grand had become more than just a luxury hotel. It was the heart of a movement, a proof that business success and human compassion could not only coexist, but thrive together. Victoria arrived, carrying copies of her newly published book, The Heart of Hospitality, A Journey from Profit to Purpose. Emma's story featured prominently in the first chapter, setting the stage for a comprehensive exploration of corporate transformation. "The advance orders are exceptional," Victoria reported. "Every business school in the country wants it for their ethics curriculum, but more importantly, it's inspiring real change. I've been invited to consult with companies across various industries, all looking to implement similar programs." As they prepared to leave for Emma's school, Alexander gathered everyone for a moment. "Before we go, I want to share something with all of you. The Global Family Alliance isn't just about hotels. It's about changing how businesses think about their responsibilities to employees and society." He turned to Emma. "And it all started because one brave little girl showed us what we'd forgotten. That true hospitality begins with taking care of our own." Emma smiled, reaching for her mother's hand. "That's what I'm going to tell my class today, that sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest things, like being kind or sharing a story, or believing that people can be better if you give them a chance." Sarah wrapped an arm around her brother's shoulders. "Out of the mouths of babes," she said softly. "Dad would be so proud of what we've built here." "What we've all built together," Alexander corrected, looking around at the family that had grown far beyond blood ties. "Every single person in this hotel has contributed to this transformation." As they headed out to Emma's school, the Morrison Grand stood proud in the morning sun. Not just a luxury hotel, but a beacon of change, a testament to the power of compassion, and a reminder that the greatest success stories often begin with a simple act of kindness. Emma's school auditorium was packed. What had started as a simple class presentation had grown into a school-wide event, with business leaders, educators, and media representatives in attendance. The principal had called it an unprecedented opportunity to witness the future of ethical business leadership. Standing at the podium, Emma looked out at the sea of faces. Her mother sat in the front row, flanked by Alexander and Sarah. Victoria was there with her book publisher, and Janet had brought the entire executive team. But what made Emma's heart truly soar was seeing the families from Morrison International, properties across the country, all the children whose lives had changed alongside hers. "A year and a half ago," she began, her clear voice carrying through the auditorium, "I was hiding in a hotel bathroom because my mom and I had nowhere else to go. I was scared and hungry, and I thought no one would ever help us." The audience was silent, captivated by her honesty. But then something magical happened. Someone chose to be kind instead of following rules. Someone remembered that hotels aren't just about fancy rooms and making money. They're about taking care of people. She clicked to the next slide in her presentation, showing her original sketch of the family center. This was my dream. Just a drawing of what I thought a hotel could be. A place where no one had to hide, where families could stay together, where everyone belonged. The next slides showed the reality. The vibrant family centers now operating in Morrison International properties across the globe, the scholarship recipients heading to college, the employee support programs that had become industry standards. But the best part isn't the buildings or the programs, Emma continued. It's the stories, like Maria, whose dad can attend her dance recitals now because the hotel has flexible schedules. Or Tyler, who's going to be a chef like his mom because the Education Foundation is helping with culinary school. Or Ms. Victoria, who learned that being successful doesn't mean being cold. Victoria wiped a tear from her eye as Emma smiled at her. Sometimes people think you have to choose between being good at business and being good to people, but that's not true. The Morrison Grand is more successful now than ever before because when you take care of your family, your whole family, everything gets better. She clicked to her final slide, a new drawing she'd created specially for this presentation. It showed the Morrison Grand, but the building was transparent, revealing all the lives intersecting within its walls. Families, employees, guests, all connected in a web of warmth and welcome. This is what hospitality really means, she declared. It's not just about giving people a place to sleep. It's about giving them a place to belong, a place to grow, a place to dream. As applause filled the auditorium, Alexander stood and walked to the podium. Emma has taught us all something invaluable, he said, that the measure of true success isn't found in spreadsheets or stock prices. It's found in the stories we create together, the lives we touch, the communities we build. He turned to Emma with a smile. Which is why I'm pleased to announce that the Morrison International Board of Directors has created a permanent position, Director of Community and Family Initiatives, and we can think of no one better qualified to help shape this role for the future than the young lady who inspired it all. Emma's eyes widened as Alexander handed her an official-looking document, a commitment that when she was ready, after completing her education, the position would be hers to define and develop. Rebecca joined them at the podium, proud tears in her eyes. From a scared little girl in a hotel bathroom to a leader helping shape the future of corporate responsibility, she said softly, dreams really do come true. Sarah stepped up next, holding Emma's original sketchbook. We're donating this to the Business Ethics Museum, she announced, as a reminder that the greatest innovations often come from the purest intentions, like a child's desire to help others feel at home. As the ceremony concluded, Emma found herself surrounded by well-wishers. Children from the various family centers presented her with a special gift, a massive collaborative artwork featuring drawings from kids at every Morrison International property, all showing what home meant to them. Later that evening, back at the Morrison Grand, a celebration filled the rooftop garden. Employees and their families gathered under the stars, sharing stories and dreams. The hotel hummed with the energy of possibility, of lives transformed and futures brightened. Emma stood at the railing with Alexander, looking out over the city lights. You know what the best part is? She asked thoughtfully. What's that? This story isn't over. It's just beginning. Because every time someone new comes to the hotel, whether they're an employee or a guest, they become part of it too. And it keeps growing and growing. Alexander smiled, remembering the cold, efficient businessman he'd once been. You're right, he agreed. The best stories never really end. They just keep touching more hearts, changing more lives, inspiring more dreams. Below them, the Morrison Grand stood proud against the night sky, its windows glowing with warmth and welcome. Not just a luxury hotel, but a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of compassion, and a reminder that sometimes the greatest transformations begin with the smallest acts of kindness. And somewhere in the building, another story was surely beginning, another life about to change, another dream about to take flight. Because that's what happens when you build something with love. It never stops growing, never stops welcoming, never stops transforming lives. It just keeps going, one heart at a time, creating a legacy of love that would ripple out into the world, touching lives far beyond the walls of a single hotel, proving that true hospitality isn't just about where you stay. It's about who you become along the way. The Morrison Grand's newest initiative was taking shape in an unexpected way. The hotel's vast kitchen, usually reserved for preparing gourmet meals for guests, had been transformed into a bustling classroom. Emma's latest idea had blossomed into the Future Chefs Academy, a program where employees' children could learn culinary skills from the hotel's master chefs. Remember, Chef Miguel instructed the eager young students, hospitality starts with food. When we prepare a meal with love, we're not just feeding bodies, we're nurturing souls. Emma stood at her workstation, carefully decorating a cake she'd baked under the chef's guidance. Her creation was themed around the hotel's transformation, each layer representing a different aspect of their journey. The bottom layer featured tiny, fondant figures of hotel staff. The middle showed children playing in the family center, and the top displayed a heart-shaped Morrison logo. Alexander watched from the doorway, amazed at how the program had evolved. What started as a simple cooking class had become a bridge between generations, cultures, and dreams. Children of housekeepers were learning alongside children of executives, all united by their love of food and hospitality. "Your idea is spreading," Sarah said, joining him. "3 other hotel chains have contacted us about implementing similar youth programs." Rebecca approached, wiping flour from her hands. She'd joined today's class to learn her daughter's latest passion. "The parents are reporting improved grades in science and math," she noted. "Apparently, practical application of measurements and chemistry makes learning more engaging." Victoria arrived with a film crew. They were documenting successful corporate responsibility programs for her next book. "This is exactly what we need to show," she said excitedly. "Real, tangible examples of how business can enrich communities." The kitchen buzzed with activity as children created dishes from their various cultural backgrounds. There was Maria teaching others her grandmother's empanada recipe, while Tyler demonstrated the proper technique for making French macarons he'd learned from his mother. "You know what's really special about cooking?" Emma asked, addressing her fellow young chefs. "It's like what happened with the hotel. When you mix different ingredients together with care and attention, you create something new and wonderful that's better than the parts alone." Janet entered with news that made everyone pause. "The Culinary Institute of America wants to partner with us," she announced. "They're offering scholarships to Future Chefs Academy graduates who want to pursue professional training." Alexander watched as the children's eyes lit up with possibility. Another door opening, another dream becoming achievable. The Morrison Grand had become more than a luxury hotel. It was an incubator of hopes and aspirations. "Mom," Emma called out, putting the finishing touches on her cake, "I think I finally figured out what I want to be when I grow up." "Oh?" Rebecca smiled, already guessing where this was heading. "I want to be everything," Emma declared. "A hotel manager like you, a business leader like Alexander, a teacher like Sarah, and a chef like Miguel. Because that's what hospitality is about, bringing all the good things together to make people happy." Chef Miguel wiped a tear from his eye, pretending it was just onion juice. "Pequeña," he said softly, "you already understand more about hospitality than most people learn in a lifetime." As the afternoon progressed, the kitchen filled with the aroma of success, fresh-baked bread, simmering sauces, and most importantly, the sweet scent of dreams taking flight. Each dish prepared was a story. Each recipe shared was a bridge between hearts. "You've created something magical here," Victoria told Alexander. "These children aren't just learning to cook, they're learning to care, to create, to connect." Alexander shook his head, smiling. "I didn't create this," he replied. "Emma did. I just learned to listen to the wisdom of a child who never forgot what really matters." The day concluded with a feast, families gathering to share the fruits of their children's labor. The hotel's grand dining room had never felt more alive, more genuine, more true to the spirit of hospitality. As Emma presented her multi-layered cake, cutting the first slice for Chef Miguel, she explained its symbolism to the gathered crowd. "See, it's like our hotel family," she said. "Each layer is different, but they all work together to make something beautiful. And the heart on top? That's because love is always the most important ingredient." The Morrison Grands Conference Center had been transformed into an international hub of hope. Delegates from hotels across the globe gathered for the first World Hospitality Summit, focused not on luxury amenities or profit margins, but on the human side of the industry. Emma, now recognized as the unofficial heart of hospitality, had been asked to open the session. She stood at the podium, her green eyes scanning the diverse crowd of industry leaders, employees, and families who had traveled from every corner of the world to be part of this revolutionary movement. "When I first came to this hotel," she began, her voice clear and confident, "I thought I was just looking for a place to stay. But what I really found was a truth that many had forgotten, that hotels aren't just buildings. They're bridges between people, between cultures, between dreams." The summit's theme, Building Bridges of Hope, was displayed on massive screens accompanied by images from Morrison International's transformation. Photos showed family centers from Dubai to Sydney, culinary programs in Singapore, and education initiatives in London, all inspired by the changes that had begun in New York. Sarah took the stage next, presenting the results of a global study on the impact of employee-focused initiatives. "The data is clear," she announced. "When we invest in our hotel families, we create ripples of positive change that extend far beyond our properties." The presentation included video messages from employees worldwide. A housekeeper in Tokyo spoke about how the education program had helped her son attend university. A bellman in Paris shared how the family center had allowed his wife to return to work. A chef in Mumbai described how the culinary youth program had revived traditional recipes while creating opportunities for the next generation. Alexander watched from the sidelines, marveling at how far they'd come. Victoria joined him, her newest book, Global Hearts: The Future of Compassionate Business, already topping bestseller lists. "Did you ever imagine," she asked, "that breaking protocol to help one child would lead to all this?" "Emma would say it was inevitable," he replied with a smile, "because kindness, like ripples in a pond, can't help but spread." Rebecca's presentation focused on practical implementation strategies. She had become an expert at helping other hotels transition to more family-centered models, her own experience providing valuable insights into both the challenges and rewards of such transformations. "The key," she explained, "is understanding that every hotel has its own unique community. While the principles of care and support are universal, the specific programs must reflect local needs and cultural values." The afternoon sessions broke into specialized workshops. Emma led a youth forum where children from different countries shared their visions for the future of hospitality. Their ideas, unrestrained by traditional business thinking, sparked innovations that had seasoned executives taking notes. "You see," Emma told her young colleagues, "that's the secret Alexander taught me. Sometimes the best way to solve big problems is to look at them with a child's heart, seeing not what is, but what could be." Janet's financial presentation silenced any remaining skeptics. The Morrison model, as it had come to be known, wasn't just ethically sound, it was professionally profitable. Employee retention rates had skyrocketed, customer satisfaction scores were at record highs, and the company's market value had doubled. But the real profit, Janet concluded, can't be measured in dollars. It's measured in dreams fulfilled, in families strengthened, in communities enriched. As the day progressed, the conference center became a living embodiment of true hospitality. Children from the various family centers performed traditional dances from their cultures. Chefs from the Future Chefs Academy served dishes that told stories of heritage and hope. Employees shared experiences in a dozen languages, yet somehow understanding each other perfectly. "This," Alexander told the closing session, "is the future of hospitality. Not just offering a place to stay, but creating spaces where dreams can take root and grow." where barriers dissolve, where differences become strengths, where every person, guest or employee, adult or child, is part of our extended family. Emma returned to the stage for the final moments, holding up her latest drawing. It showed the Earth, with hotels appearing not as buildings but as bridges, connecting people across oceans and continents. "Remember," she said, her voice carrying the simple wisdom that had started it all, "a hotel is just like a heart. It works best when it's open, when it's full of love and when it has room for everyone." The summit concluded with a ceremony where hotel groups from around the world signed the Global Hospitality Covenant, a commitment to prioritizing human welfare alongside business success. As delegates departed, many wiped tears from their eyes, touched by the realization that they were part of something truly transformative. Sarah found Alexander standing alone after the crowds had dispersed. "You know what Dad used to say about hotels?" she asked softly, "that they're only as strong as their foundations." "Yes," she smiled. "He just didn't realize that the strongest foundation isn't concrete, it's compassion." Spring had brought new life to the Morrison Grand's rooftop garden. What had once been a purely decorative space had been transformed, like everything else in the hotel, by Emma's vision. Now raised beds burst with herbs and vegetables tended by children from the family center as part of their green hospitality initiative. "These tomatoes will be ready next week," Emma explained to a group of visiting hotel executives. "Chef Miguel uses them in his special sauce, and he teaches us about food sustainability and reducing waste." The rooftop garden had become more than just an educational space. It was a living symbol of how the Morrison philosophy had taken root and flourished. Each plant was carefully labeled with its name in multiple languages, reflecting the hotel's international family. Rebecca watched her daughter leading the tour with pride. Emma had grown so much, not just in height, but in confidence and understanding. She was no longer the scared child hiding in a bathroom. She had become a bridge builder, a dream weaver, a catalyst for change. "She's remarkable," one of the executives whispered to Alexander. "How old is she now?" 9.5, he replied, with a smile. "Going on 40 in wisdom, but thankfully still 9.5 in joy and wonder." Sarah approached with exciting news. "The United Nations wants to feature our program in their Sustainable Development Conference. They're particularly interested in how we've integrated environmental education with family support services." The garden had become a gathering place for the hotel community. Housekeepers picked fresh herbs for their family meals, chefs conducted lessons on farm-to-table cooking, and children learned about nature's cycles while tending their assigned plots. Victoria, who had been documenting the garden's development for her next book, captured a beautiful moment as Emma helped a younger child plant her first seedling. "See," Emma was saying, "you have to be gentle but not afraid. Plants are like people. They need care and attention, but they also need space to grow their own way." Janet joined the group, tablet in hand as always, but now her statistics told a different story. "The garden program has reduced our food costs by 15%, improved our sustainability rating, and created a new revenue stream through educational tourism. But the real harvest," Alexander added, "isn't measured in dollars or ratings." He gestured to where children of different backgrounds worked together, sharing stories and dreams as they tended their plants. A small stage had been set up in one corner of the garden for today's special event. The Future Chefs Academy was hosting its first garden-to-table celebration, where children would prepare dishes using ingredients they had grown themselves. Emma took the microphone, her green eyes sparkling with excitement. "Welcome to our garden," she began. "Like our hotel, it's a place where different things come together to create something beautiful. Just as different plants help each other grow stronger, different people make our hotel family stronger." Chef Miguel demonstrated how to harvest herbs properly, explaining how each plant contributed to the hotel's cuisine. The children followed his instructions carefully, their small hands gentle with the fragrant leaves. "You know what I love about gardening?" Emma asked as she helped collect basil for pesto. "It teaches you patience. You can't rush a plant to grow faster, just like you can't rush people to change. You just have to provide the right conditions and trust in the process." Alexander reflected on how this wisdom applied to their own journey. The transformation of Morrison International hadn't happened overnight. It had grown gradually, naturally, nurtured by compassion and understanding. Sarah organized the children into teams for the cooking demonstration, making sure each group had a mix of ages and backgrounds. That's another lesson from the garden, she noted. Diversity makes everything stronger. As the afternoon progressed, the rooftop filled with the aromas of fresh herbs and cooking food. Parents arrived after their shifts, joining their children in creating meals that told stories of heritage and hope. Victoria captured it all for her book: the laughter, the learning, the bonds being formed over shared gardens and shared dreams. "This," she said, gesturing to the scene, "is what sustainable business looks like. Not just environmental sustainability, but human sustainability." Emma stood at the garden's edge as the sun began to set, her hands dirty from working in the soil. "You know what's amazing?" she asked Alexander, who had joined her. "A seed is such a tiny thing, but it can grow into something huge and wonderful, just like ideas." He looked at her thoughtfully. "Like the idea of a little girl who believed hotels could be more than just buildings." She nodded, smiling. "And now look, we're growing more than just plants up here, we're growing hope." The garden continued to buzz with activity as evening approached. Families shared meals at tables scattered between the raised beds. Children proudly served dishes they had helped prepare, and the barriers that once divided people had dissolved like morning dew in the sunshine. Rebecca joined them, wrapping an arm around Emma's shoulders. "You've created something magical here, sweetheart." "We all did," Emma corrected. "That's what makes it special. Just like in the garden, everything grows better when we work together.